Let's talk about lactose intolerance. It's one of those things we hear about all the time, right? But what if almost everything we think we know about it is kind of wrong? The actual science tells a much different and honestly a way more fascinating story. 70%. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the percentage of adults around the world who eventually lose the ability to fully digest milk. We're not talking about a small minority here. This is the vast majority of the human species. And this is the first big mind shift. We tend to think of lactose intolerance as some kind of disorder or an allergy, but it's not. For almost all of human history, it was the absolute default setting. It was just normal. So let's look at the timeline. About 10,000 years ago, our ancestors started domesticating animals like cows and goats for milk. But, and this is the key part, it took another couple thousand years before a random genetic mutation popped up, mostly in Northern European populations. This mutation allowed them to keep digesting milk into adulthood. This ability, which we call lactase persistence, was a brand new evolutionary trick. So being lactose tolerant actually makes you the exception, not the rule. Okay, so what is actually going on inside your body? To really get it, we need to look at the biology. And the easiest way to think about it is with a simple lock and key. First up, we have lactose. This is the main sugar in milk. You can think of it as a little treasure chest of energy, but it's locked up tight in a big molecule. Your body can't use it as is. Lactose is the lock. And to open that lock, you need a very specific key. That key is an enzyme called lactase. Its one and only job is to find that lactose molecule and break it down into two simple sugars that your body can absorb in a snap. So, for someone who is lactose tolerant, the whole process is super smooth. You eat some dairy, the lactase key immediately finds the lactose lock, unlocks it, your body gets the energy, and you feel great. No drama. But what happens if you don't have enough of the key? Well, that lactose lock just travels all the way down, undigested, into your large intestine. And down there, the bacteria in your gut see it and they think, party time! They start fermenting all that sugar. And the byproducts of that party? That's the gas, the bloating, and all those other uncomfortable feelings we call lactose intolerance. Now, this is where we get to a huge misunderstanding that affects millions of people. So many of us think this is an all or nothing thing. You're either totally fine with dairy or you can't even look at a piece of cheese. But the medical reality? It's way more interesting than that. On one side, you have what so many people believe. I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't have any dairy, period. But the scientific reality is that most people who identify as lactose intolerant can actually handle a certain amount of it just fine. The real question is, how much? And here's the number, 12 grams. Extensive research has shown that most people with lactose intolerance can handle up to 12 grams of lactose in a single sitting with few, if any, symptoms. And some people can even handle up to 18 grams if it's spread throughout the day. So what does 12 grams actually look like? It's not some abstract number. It's about what you'd find in one standard 8-ounce glass of milk. This one fact is a total game changer for anyone who's been strictly avoiding all dairy out of fear. And the news gets even better. The processes that create things like aged hard cheeses, think cheddar or Parmesan, and yogurt with live cultures actually break down most of the lactose for you. So these foods are naturally super low in it to begin with. So why is busting this myth so critical? I mean, who cares if people avoid dairy? Well, it matters because unnecessarily cutting out an entire food group can have some serious, unintended consequences for your health. This quote from the research really just hits the nail on the head. When we think we're lactose intolerant, we change our diets, and those changes aren't always for the better. Just take a look at this chart. You can see a huge calcium gap. People who believe they're intolerant get way less calcium from dairy every day. And that's a really big deal, because for a lot of us, dairy is one of the easiest and most available sources of calcium in our diets. And the fallout from that calcium gap can be pretty severe. Studies have actually linked this kind of dairy avoidance to significantly higher reported rates of both hypertension and diabetes. So this is about way more than just an upset stomach. It's about your long-term health. Okay, but the good news, and there is really good news here, is that you don't have to choose between feeling awful and missing out on important nutrients. Once you understand the science, you can use smart, simple strategies to manage lactose. So here's your toolkit. First, go for those naturally low lactose foods like aged cheeses and yogurt. Second, don't overload your system. Instead of a giant milkshake, just spread your dairy out and stay under that 12 gram per meal threshold. Third, you can literally buy the key. Over-the-counter lactase pills can be taken right before you eat. And finally, the grocery store is full of amazing lactose-free products where they've already broken down the sugar for you. So it all comes down to this one question. Based on what the science tells us, is it maybe time to rethink your relationship with dairy? For most people, it seems cutting it out completely isn't just unnecessary, it might actually be working against your health. The real story isn't about intolerance. It's about understanding your personal threshold and learning how to manage it. Maybe it's time to find out what your body can really handle.